Well, that was quite an introduction. And I think you realize that Pierce has proven one thing tonight, and that is basketball players are a lot smarter than football players. Because, as President Andrews had warned us earlier, he was only permitted to speak 3 minutes, where I have the privilege of speaking 5 minutes. So, you know, I got plenty of time to get even with this guy. Anyway, in all sincerity, Pierce has been a football coach and athletic director at Immaculata High School in Somerville, and he has an overall record of 248 wins and 118 losses, with about a 70% win percentage. And he plays in the against the tough parochial schools in New Jersey, which yearly is either 7th or 8th out of the top 10. So, as he said before, we've been very, very good friends. You know, for years, I've always been asked, where's Altoona? And I always tell people, well, Pittsburgh is a suburb of Altoona. And everybody starts scurrying for the maps. You know, they got to figure this one out. And like you heard what Stan said before, Pierce is from Pittsburgh. We had a player at St. Francis by the name of Jocko Clancy, God rest him. He was our captain my freshman year. And we had Maurice Stokes and Ed Dugan and myself with the front line. And none of us could see. We all wore glasses. We didn't wear them in combat. But anyway, Jocko, and at the Jaffa Moss, if some people remember, there was a midget, we call it the midget scoreboard. It was over the top of the projection room. And you couldn't see that if you had binoculars. And in 5 or 6 minutes in the game, we time out, we say, Jock, how we doing? He says, oh, they're killing us. Then you go another 5 or 10 minutes, come back, we're down by 15 or 20. I thought, my God, it looks like we're up by 15 or 20. So I finally got smart after a few games. I started asking the guy I could see, and he said, no, we're winning by 20, don't worry about it. Pat Fellinger and I were teammates at Altoona Catholic High School, and Pat was one of the close friends of mine. He was excellent as far as a teammate is concerned, very competitive, strong-willed, and we stuck up for each other very much when we were known at that time as the Twin Towers. Likewise, when I was at St. Francis, I had another fellow teammate by the name of Maurice Stokes. And Maurice was basically the same way. Maurice would stick up for you, he'd help you, and we had a nice group of fellows that stuck together during our career there. About a year or so ago, a good friend of mine from New Jersey was up to a game at St. Francis, and his daughter plays on the golf team now, and he had seen in the book up there, the program, that was the 15th leading rebounder. And when he came back, he was telling me about all this, and a good friend of ours, both of ours, an attorney there, said to him, you know, can you imagine how many rebounds he would have had if Stokes hadn't gotten his way? And Stokes was a hog, there was no doubt about that. I mean, but one of the best ball players in history, we've all seen in the newspapers. His guardian, Jack Twyman, and I knew each other for a long time. And Jack, as you all know, is his sponsor and his guardian. And we played against Jack in the consolation game of the 55 NIT. And when we were up in the Catskills, when they had the game, the annual summer game up there for Stokes' honor, which was for handicapped players in the NBA or people down on their luck, raised a lot of money. And Twyman and him got a little discussion in the suite up there one night, and finally Twyman said, just remember one thing. We only played against each other once, and I outscored you 35-34. So that kept Stokes quiet for a while. When we played in the NIT, it was a quarterfinal game against Holy Cross with Tom Heinsohn. And it was about almost near halftime. Stokes and Heinsohn are rolling on the floor, punching each other out around midcourt. And all the guys on our team were saying, geez, those two guys are going to get thrown out. You guys got to remember one thing. Ned Irish owns the Garden, and these two guys refereeing will never see another game if they throw these two guys out with 19,000 people screaming. But it was a pleasure, and it was just as big a pleasure as being put into the Hall of Fame here in Blair County. And as we saw tonight, and over the years, there are a tremendous number of athletes, excellent athletes that came out of this area. And the whole area should be very, very, very proud of them. Finally, the first Hall of Fame dinner, when our coach was inducted, Red Mihaly, well-known referee in the NCAA and also with the NBA, was his presenter. And that particular night, Red had pointed out that Skip was the coach of a team that had the only one he ever knew in history that won a game in the last seconds without the ball going in the basket. And they didn't discuss it, they didn't tell you what really happened, but a lot of people in Altoona here have always asked me, what really happened that night? So I thought this is my opportunity to explain to everyone. We were playing Fort Belvoir, and Fort Belvoir came into town in the mosque, and they had about a 20-25 game win streak. They were undefeated, and it was in early December, and they'd played a number of games. It was only about our second or third game. And we down near the end, we're losing by 2. And it's in the late seconds. And a gentleman from Pittsburgh, Walt Malinsky, our guard, he drove across the key, and he went up with a jump shot, and he got fouled, but in the action, I wasn't paying that much attention. I was under the boards beating heads with this other guy from Fort Belvoir. And a gentleman by the name of Conrad, Hugh Conrad from Lilly, his son or uncle or son or nephew works for a paper locally that I'm not supposed to mention. I promised Neil that I wouldn't mention it. But anyway, we're killing each other because the ball just keeps circling and circling and circling around. It must have gone around 7 times. Conrad's underneath, a guy by the name of Woodring's a referee outside. And Conrad's got his eyes on 2 of us because we wanted that ball bad. I wanted him to get a tip in. So finally, the ball rims out, and we're on the opposite side of the basket, falls on the floor. And Woodring's over at the scorer's table, and he's calling foul on number such and such. 2 shots. So I went out, he says, hey, Woody, that ball went in. Don't we get the basket? He's, oh yeah, he says, basket's good, shoot 1. So that tied the game. And here comes Richie Guerin. Now, Richie Guerin was the coach here, player coach. He was a captain or lieutenant, he was ROTC. And he was an All-American for Iona, and eventually was All-NBA with the New York Knicks. And by the way, he still has a record for a single Knicks game for assists, and he had 23. But he's arguing with these 2 guys, and he comes over and he says, Saller, of all the years I've been playing ball, I've never seen like this. So Walt naturally sunk it. We win by 1. And that was the whole story about the mystery basket. Again, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank the whole committee. I particularly want to thank the president. I want to thank Neil Liddell. I want to thank Kathy. They've been very helpful with me in making all the arrangements for my family and friends. And I can't say enough. It's a tremendous honor for me to be in this group with a great number of other excellent athletes. I want to thank you all once again.